Hold my head inside your hands.
Talking now about the secular opinion regarding masturbation and the studies that relate to that, having discussed the Christian point of view of the different denominations. The word masturbation comes from manus and to disturb, turbare, and these are Latin words. The common statistic that you'd read about the frequency of it, or how many males and females practice masturbation, you'll find that the figure for the males is always above the 90%. In fact, the figure that I have here by Alfred Kinsey, one of the well-known names in sexual studies, he said that 92% of men and 62% of women have masturbated during their lifespan. It was found also that 95% of men and 71% of women masturbated at some point in their lives. So these are the figures. There are other statistics that make the number for women nearer the 50% rather than the 70%. I also believe, although we don't have statistics, that in the East, because they always make the girl very concerned about her virginity, probably the rate would be far less than the 50% for girls in the East. But I have no statistics there to tell you. What I'm reading are the statistics of the West. But for men, all statistics are above the 90%. In 2009, the UK government joined Holland and other European nations in encouraging teens to masturbate at least daily. An orgasm was defined as a right in its health pamphlet. They say that about 81% of males commenced masturbation between the age of 10 and 15, and among females about 55% for the same age group. In the Now magazine in Toronto, an article said the frequency of masturbation declines after the age of 17. Many males masturbate daily or even more frequently, well into their 20s and sometimes far beyond. The decline is more drastic among females and more gradual among males. While females aged 13 to 17 masturbated almost once a day on average, between brackets, and almost as often as their male peers, close the bracket, adult women only masturbated 8 to 9 times a month compared to 18 to 20 times among men. Healthy 21 to 28-year-old males are able to masturbate at least 8 to 10 times per day, an unusual figure to hear, 8 to 10 times per day if they are not stressed. And what they confirm here is that with all these cases, there are no physical side effects or disadvantages or illnesses, and all the old myths of having mental illness or blindness or all that stuff that proved to be completely fiction and ways to scare people in the past. If anything, masturbation can leave the religious person or the person who was taught from a young age that it is not something to practice, with a sense of loneliness and a sense of guilt, but it doesn't seem to be the same with others who didn't have such education at younger age. It is mentioned here that intercourse by itself is often inconvenient and impractical at times to provide sufficient sexual release for many people. One of the things known is that vaginal intercourse alone is unlikely to produce orgasm unless the foreplay and the excitation of different erotic areas in the body of the female have been well practiced. Otherwise, she is not excited enough, and vaginal intercourse will very rarely end by an orgasm. That's a point for men to understand and to try to make sure that they really don't rush matters. And as Awsam Wasfi was saying, and Ashraf al-Dab and others, husbands and wives must must talk very frankly together to discuss what pleases them and what displeases them. Unless there is good communication between them, they might have an unpleasant sexual relation for years. And women in the East are taught that this is, in a sense, a taboo, and it is not out of being polite and courteous that you would speak frankly with your husband, but they always mention that, and I'm very pleased of what they say on the Arabic Christian channels, that good communication is one of the best ways to avoid sexual dysfunctions. Another study in Australia by Graham Giles, the Cancer Council of Australia, stated that he found that males masturbating frequently had a lower probability to develop prostate cancer, especially those before the age of 20 and those above the age of 50, where between the 20 and 50 the rate of cancer occurrence in the prostate at a later age was found slightly higher. Another study published in 1997 found an inverse association between death from coronary heart disease and frequency of orgasm, whether it is in the sexual relation or masturbation. They were here talking about a frequency of 5 to 7 ejaculations per week. Another word known as sexual addictions. This is not defined as a higher frequency of sexual relations or ejaculations, but it is defined as the sexual activity that affects a person's ability to function in everyday life. Means the sexual thoughts are disturbing his normal day-to-day activities. Again, they say here, Victorian era. Social expressions of sexuality reached their peak in the Victorian era when popular authors wrote books threatening young children with mental deficiency or insanity if they indulged in any form of masturbation. There is no scientific evidence of any causative relationship between autoeroticism and any form of mental disorder. So at the end, what should we say to our teenagers when they know that they are practicing masturbation? I think we shouldn't measure it up to adultery as we think and as many of the monastic tradition teachings do, because to them, just seeing a woman or expressing a feeling of a sexual desire, that is adultery. For a teenager, I believe the best way is to explain to them this is a problem at present, this is a difficulty at present, because it is part of your development. And one day you will get over it, as most men have done so. Explain to him that 95% or so of men have been through this experience at the teen age, that it will settle, and I don't think we should give them a deep sense of guilt, although of course it is far better if they can control it, because there are these 5% who don't masturbate, but whether they are normal with a normal sexual desire or not, studies don't mention that. I don't believe we should condemn our children in that, but we should also explain that better avoid it if at all possible, and pray for them and tell them one day this will be over, at least when you get married.